All right. Well, what is up, everybody? Welcome to another week of Launch Live. And I'm here with two very good friends and special people. Abby, Grayson, what's up? You guys good?
How's it going so
Doing
far?
good.
And it is exciting, and I'm glad to have them with us. We are going to talk just a little bit about our big truth this week, talk about some implications of that, what that looks like in our lives, what that has looked like in our lives. And I think it's going to be a good time. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So this is interesting because we only have 2 more weeks in our spring semester, if that even exists anymore, if we're even in a semester. It feels like it's already summer to me. And so I don't even know if anyone's even still doing school or what, but we have 2 more weeks left in our spring semester. So we're finishing out with 2 pretty good big truths, 2 pretty awesome big truths for us to think about. And this one especially here that we're going to talk about today and tonight is super important, and I really like it. So let's jump right in to what that is. So our big truth this week is and if you watched Laura's video on Sunday, if you've been doing the workout, you know this, but it is true friends make known the love of Jesus. True friends make known the love of Jesus. And our key verse for this week was a verse that should ring a bell in all of our ears because it's a verse our church knows way too well. We have shirts with it on it. We have it imprinted into our brains, basically. And so, but I want to read it for us just to remind us of what it says. And that is John 15:15. And it says this. Let me get to it. Here's what it says. It says, "No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing. But I've called you friends. For all that I've heard from my Father, I've made known to you." And so that's our key verse. And it's a great verse for this because it shows that big truth perfectly. This idea that if we want to be true friends, the best thing we could do is to make known the love of Jesus. That's what being a true friend looks like. And when we think of our relationships and our friendships with our friends that don't know Jesus, the most caring thing we could do is to share Jesus with them. There's not a more caring, there's not a more important thing that we could do in those friendships but to share the love of Jesus for them. And what that means, and I hope this challenges us, and this is where we're going to go with our conversation, that means is that we have to start looking at our friends and caring them about their souls, and seeing them as a soul, right? That if they don't know Jesus and just being real, that if they were to die, they would spend eternity separated from him. And we have to, we got to start living with that burden. And so that's what we want to focus on. That's where we're going to kind of drive this conversation, focusing around one of our big ideas, which is that true friends care more about the soul than acceptance. And if I'm being honest, that big idea is convicting because that's something that I know I struggle with. I know all of us probably struggle with this idea of caring more about our acceptance than we do caring about other people's souls and being okay with that. And so, but what we want to do is we want to talk just about what that has looked like in our lives. And so I've got Abby, I've got Grayson here. And so the first question that I want to chase with you guys is just simply that is, what is a time, tell us about a time where that big truth or big idea has played out in your guys' life of caring more about a person's soul than your acceptance in maybe one of your friends' lives or whatever it is. So I don't care who goes first, either one of you, but yeah.
You want to take it first, Abby?
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. For me, as I was thinking about the big idea, I kind of wanted to first think, like, what did my friendships look like before I was saved and then, like, afterwards as a Jesus follower? And to do that, I wanted to define, like, how does the world define friendship? And then how does Jesus model friendship in his life? And the difference between the two from what I, like, just saw and thinking about what my friendships looked like before and in looking through the Gospels at Jesus's life, is that gospel-centered friendships are not self-serving, but rather self-giving.
Yeah.
So in my friendships before I was a Jesus follower, my friends were only as valuable to me as what they could do for me. So if they didn't make me feel better about myself, or there was no social gain or personal gain, or they didn't serve the purpose that I thought they should serve, then they were of little value to me. But what friendship has been modeled in Jesus's life and what we're called to as Jesus followers, you really see that we're supposed to give ourselves away to our friends, regardless of their reaction, because the end goal isn't self-elevation, but rather Christ exaltation. And so what that looks like in my life, I don't have a specific example, but just very broad. The self-giving aspect of my friendships is laying down things like acceptance or image or approval in exchange for Christ exalting speech and deeds. So for like my unbelieving friends, instead of living a life that looks like their life or talking like they talk, I stand out in a way that points them back to Jesus, and I use any opportunity to use my words or my actions to point them to the truth of the gospel. And even for my like friends that are believers, I call out sin in their life, even though I know that their reaction to that may not be pleasant. Because like I said, the end goal is that Christ is exalted in my friendships, not myself. So you do that by pushing your friends to him and to look at him rather than pulling your friends to yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really
okay, cool. That's my answer.
I like how you talk not just about, and I think it's important that we talk about, like, it's also true friends make known the love of Jesus to our believer friends, right? That we all, even as believers, need a reminder of that. And even our friendships with believers should look different than the world's definition of friendship, like you're talking about. So that's really good. And Grayson, what about you?
Yeah, that was really good, Abby. I would just say from personal experience, really one of the things that's kind of been evident in some of my relationships and through my life has been that we just as a culture, as a people, we don't like confrontation. We don't like people to tell us what's right, what's wrong. We kind of like to do our own thing, and we wouldn't say that until we're the one getting confronted with something that offends us. But we know if we know anything about the gospel, we know that it can be offensive, and it is offensive. It's telling us that we are not we're not who we try to be.
Yeah.
We're not worthy of anything that we try to gain or that we think we can earn. And so really to preach the gospel or to tell someone the gospel is sometimes not going to be just flowers and rainbows. Like it's gonna offend people. And so like I said, in my personal experience, I've got several friends that it's been hard to share the gospel with them because, to be quite honest, I've been afraid of losing that friendship. And it's really, really easy for me to just in my pride and my desire to be accepted, to just kind of soften the gospel or to just kind of put it off and not really share the gospel with them because of my fear of their not accepting me or just getting frustrated with it. So I won't like say any names, but I actually have a friend that that kind of happened to me with. Unfortunately, like I was kind of worried about just confronting him on these things and just saying, hey man, like I know you claim to be a Christian, and I want you to know what that means, and I don't know, can we talk through that? I don't know that I see the fruit of that in your life. And that was kind of the last conversation I had with him for a while. But he came back to me a little while later and actually thanked me for doing that. And it wasn't him thanking me. It was just him saying, hey, what you said, the gospel that, was offensive to me in the first place, actually, changed things in me.
Yeah.
So just be encouraged in that. Like, it's hard, and it's I feel the weight of wanting to be accepted all the time. and it kind of keeps us from sharing the gospel a lot of times. But if we'll be faithful and share the gospel, God will do the work in the people around us.
Yeah, that's good, because it's important for us to remember that, we're just the messengers, and that's what we've been talking about with this whole series, is how we are God's messengers. And I love that, because you just see the Holy Spirit working there. And it's like, it's our jobs to tell, but it's not our jobs to do the work. And when we're just faithful, like you said, Grayson, man, the Holy Spirit and God can do a wonderful and marvelous thing through our friends' lives. And so, man, that was really good. Thank you guys for being honest with that, being willing to be real with that stuff. And so, second thing, and just the last kind of thing I just want to talk about, is what's cool is that you guys have been students. You guys are still students in a way, and you guys have friends, and hopefully, I think so. And so what we want, just as we're talking to these students, as you guys are watching this, what we want is, what is some encouragement that you guys would give our students just about being a true friend, why it's important, why it's worth it, just some encouragement in just their everyday life as we go into the summer, of just to press on in that. So
I'll go first. Two passages that I was thinking about whenever I thought about the big truth and about this question was Psalm 62 verse 9, and then Colossians 3 1 through 4. And I'll read those really quick. Psalm 62:9 says, "Common people are only a vapor, important people an illusion. Together on a scale, they weigh less than a vapor." And then, give me 1 second. Colossians 3 1 through 4 says, "So if you've been raised with Christ, seek the things above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory." So I guess my encouragement and my challenge to anybody who wants to be a true friend, as defined by like John 15:15, is don't trade the weight of someone's eternity for something that the Bible says holds no weight at all.
yeah,
So you look at Psalm 62:9, and it says important people are just an illusion. Like all of it is just like the weight of a vapor, so it weighs nothing. And if you are a Jesus follower, like cling to the promises in Colossians 3 1 through 4. We're told our life isn't here on earth, but it's hidden in Christ. We don't have it yet. If you think back to Impact, like we're strangers and exiles here. This isn't home for us. So cling fast to those promises that God has made, and that he will be faithful to, fulfill those promises for us. And just live a life with a loose grasp on things like approval, acceptance, and image. And know that in letting those things go, you're living your life for something that holds a greater weight and a greater value, and that's the kingdom.
Yeah, that's so good. That's really good. What about you, Grayson?
So one of the other big ideas that we kind of have talked about, or not really the big ideas, but one of the implications from our verse this week is that a believer has to know Jesus to share Jesus. Mm. And really my encouragement is pretty simple. I think the reason that we struggle so much with gospel proclamation and confronting people with the gospel is just because we don't enjoy Jesus enough ourselves. And so I've just been convicted of that in my own life a lot when I think of, opportunities that I've missed to share the gospel, or, times where I've, like I said, where I've, chosen acceptance over choosing to share Jesus with someone. It's because that has to happen as an overflow of our own abiding relationship with Jesus. And I mean, you even see that in John 15, at the beginning of that chapter. Jesus doesn't open with, okay, go share the gospel. He opens with, abide in me. He's teaching us what it looks like to find our joy in him.
Yeah.
And he says, if we find our joy in him, our joy will be full. And then what he's saying is, when that happens, that will overflow to the people around us. So it shouldn't be a burden. It shouldn't be something that another thing that we have to really try to do. And if it feels like that, don't just try to do the moral things. Like, go and enjoy Jesus and figure out what it's like to know him, to abide in him, and then out of that, those things will come.
Yeah.
This isn't a on-ramp to becoming a Christian. This is the overflow of what it is to be a Christian. And so, like I said, I mean, the reason that we struggle so much with gospel proclamation is because we just don't enjoy Jesus enough in our everyday lives. And so, if I have any encouragement, that would be it.
Yeah, man, that is really good, because we think of our conversations that we have with our friends. Every conversation, everything we talk with our friends about is an overflow of what we love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming from an overflow of where our joy is. And so, man, I just think of the question out of that, Grayson, just to ask ourselves is, where is my joy right now? And is my speech, is what I'm talking about, is it an overflow of my joy in Jesus? And man, so that's spot on, man. Thank you for saying that. That was really good. Well, yeah, so there we go. Thank you guys for coming on here, Launch Live. It's been fun. And as we're going to wrap this up here, for you guys as you're watching, a lot of you guys are going to be going into your Zoom groups, your launch groups. And what I just encourage you guys to do in that time is lean in to those conversations. And if there's anything over the last couple of weeks, I've been really, just really disappointed, just really convicted, it's hard to do launch groups on Zoom. And it's kind of frustrating. And I know we can all think that, and that can be a burden. That can be something in the way of us doing that and really leaning into that. But I encourage you guys, lean into that stuff. You guys we need that. We need community. And as you guys go into that, be willing to be vulnerable about these things. Be willing to talk about the reasons why we don't share the gospel, the reasons in your own heart why you don't feel the need to share the gospel. Be honest about caring more about acceptance than other people's souls and just all that stuff. Be willing to go into those conversations and be vulnerable, be honest. But yeah, so thank you guys. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Grayson, for coming on here. It was a lot of fun. And we will see you guys next week here on Launch Live. Peace out, everyone. Oh my gosh.